Andrew, are we ready? All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 13th meeting of the Goffstown Board of Selectmen. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone please remain standing. Unfortunately, as we have all come to know, we lost a soldier this past week, Marine Corporal Philip Chardy. Very sad day for Goffstown and for Mr. Chardy's friends and family. So with that, I'd like to have a brief moment of silence. Thank you. I just would like the community to know, as we just had our moment of silence for Corporal Chardy, a brief service will be held in the chapel at the New Hampshire Veterans Cemetery in Boscawen, New Hampshire, this Thursday, September 16th at 4 p.m., followed by his burial. Their Goffstown High School is planning a reception at 6 p.m. at the request of his family. And for those of you in the Goffstown area, if you'd like to pay your respects, I'm told that between about 2:30 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, the Patriot Riders from Milford, New Hampshire will be escorting. There'll be an escort to the cemetery in Boscawen. So those of you who'd like to pay your respects, I believe that escort will be going through the town sometime between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. All right. Our first order of business will be the acceptance or correction, with or without corrections, of the minutes of August 30th. Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept with correction.
Okay, I have a motion to accept with correction. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded.
I have one correction.
All right.
Page 9, Catherine.
Yes.
The middle paragraph, the last line of my remarks.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of that last line, it says N them.
What is
it? Replace the M with an N, so it's and then we would propose.
And then, T-H-E-N.
Yep. Spell check, didn't catch that.
Selectman Campusano, you had a
Yes,
correction.
on page 10, a question, then a clarification, a correction and a clarification. Second paragraph to the bottom, under the public works issues.
Which page, I'm sorry?
Page
10.
10. Sorry. Last sentence where I say, he said he didn't agree with the $100 fee, though. And that should be continued. That was for simply repaving.
Okay.
And then on page 11.
The word "those" should be struck.
No, that's fine. You can leave that. Just add for simply repaving. I was referring to the $100 fee for just something simple like repaving.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't agree with the full $100 fee for that. And then on page 11, I'm just trying to get clarification because there's a motion in bold by Selectman Gross.
Yeah, it should be 410.
Well, I understand that, but then there's a vote, but I don't believe the vote is for that particular motion. I thought the motion was that
Correct.
we would have a $100 fee for
Yes.
anything other than overlay and
That's
a
true.
$25
Yep.
fee for
And
overlay.
I voted against it.
Correct.
Yep.
But I don't see that motion
Right.
here.
All right. How do you think the motion should be phrased? I can check the DVD.
That'd probably be the best thing to get the exact wording.
Okay, so the motion should be corrected, followed by a corrected vote.
Right, and the vote was 410.
Okay.
Any other corrections? Not hearing any. All those in favor of correcting the minutes with the amendments made, please say aye. Aye. 5-0. Thank you. Next is public comment. Is anyone here from the public? Not seeing any. I do have an announcement. This was from Paul Hartigan, sent to Town Administrator Sue DeRusso. Earlier this summer, I had occasion to deal with two of your employees, Kathy at Public Works and Jason at the Cemetery Department. I want you to know how pleased I was with the service they provided. The town should be proud of these two employees. I could not have asked for any better service. Being a public employee for most of my working years, I know that compliments are few and far between. I trust you will notify both of my complete satisfaction. And that is that for public comment and any other announcements that we have.
Selectman Pierce, I believe you're supposed to.
I have an announcement concerning, it's a traffic alert, most important for those wanting to vote at Bartlett School tomorrow, 14th of September. The Gulfstown Sewer Commission announces that access during the construction of Mass Road Sewer will be available to the Bartlett Elementary School for voting purposes tomorrow, Tuesday, the September 14th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. However, there's two ways of getting into the school. If you're voting and you're heading north on 114A, and that is approaching Bartlett from the direction of the Manchester line
Mast Road.
on Mass Road,
Right.
or Kelly, Bernard, you will be allowed a right turn access into the Bartlett School. If you're heading south on 114A, and that would be in the direction from 114 Hannaford Shaw's direction, you must follow detour signs turning left on the Ranchambeau and then Cross Street, Higgins Street for access into the rear of Bartlett School. For traffic that's not involved with voting, they will be detoured to Roy and College Street. This notice that I've read, detour map, and other updates on the construction schedule and plans are available at the town's website, www.gulfstown.com. And if necessary, you can contact the Bob Marchot at 234-0312.
All right, and before I forget, Janice, could you reach out to Jim Bouchard? I think he's coming in. I don't, is he coming in tonight for budget purposes? I'd like for one of the sewer commissioners to come in, in the not next week, but the week after, to kind of give us, the selectmen, an overview as to how the project is proceeding. And I can't speak for the other selectmen. I guess I was under the impression that it would be, I guess, maybe more ahead of where it's at in terms of the current project. But I did speak to Carl a little bit about it, and Carl, although he's not responsible for the project, he is aware of it because there's a lot of discussions that are had between DPW and the sewer department, sewer commission. And they've had a lot of difficulties in terms of this, the trench that's there. There's a lot of other utilities that are, there's gas, there's, you name it, it's in that road. But if we could at least get an update from the sewer commission as to what's the progress, how much work do they plan on doing? Because I know that this project extends all the way, I believe, to the new Rite Aid. So, and I can't envision that they're going to be going, if they're going at the pace they've gone so far this summer. I can't imagine how they would even get there, because it's such slow go with all the utilities that are in that road. But yeah, if we can get an update from Jim or any of the other commissioners, that would be super, just to let the board know and the community know what the progress is. All right. There still is no comment. We're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so we'll proceed now with our town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to point out to everyone in the packet you have your weekly meeting schedule. And the first item on the schedule is noted the New Hampshire primary tomorrow, Tuesday. And was just wondering who will be working at the polls.
I will be there in the morning. I will not be there at closing, though. I have a trip I have to go to.
Yeah, I can
for
be
work.
there to close it
Okay.
at the high school.
Okay.
We need to, For a state, is this considered a state election where we need to be there? Someone needs to be there all day? Or is
I
this
guess,
just opening and
well,
closing?
I think it is. I'm presuming that if the question was asked that somebody needs to be there, it is a state primary.
And Bartlett is necessary?
Yeah.
Then I'll be there in the morning. I'd like to be able to leave at 5:30 for the SOAR Commission meeting. And I'll miss the-
Honestly, I'll take it home, and I hope to be there probably even earlier than that
All right.
for you.
And I can be at either from after lunch through closing.
Okay. For the purpose of business, we'll discuss this,
Take care of
after.
But I expect I'll be close, I'll be much earlier than that for you, and I'll take it through.
Sounds like you got it covered,
Yeah, we'll get it
both
covered.
places. All right. Next item of business would be items for the consensus folder. And I will add that there is also an additional item that is in the consensus folder requesting reimbursement from the Mildred Stark Trust Fund of $57,000. That was an addition that we put in there today because I really kind of want to move that along. We have employee status reports, 3 fire department resignations, and also note that there is also an additional employee status form in the signature folder for a discharge. And I believe the fire chief is coming in this evening later on under non-public, and I think the police chief is as well.
I just want to, just for clarification, it's a combination of EMTs, firefighter, going full-time, part-time. I just want folks getting that we lost 3 firefighters. We knew of a couple. Now this is a nighttime EMT, which falls under that department. So
We also have an individual that's hired as a full-time officer as well. We also have a proclamation for DAR. With the board's permission, we can schedule the presentation of the proclamation for next week at the very beginning of the meeting. I know that the next couple of weeks you're trying to limit the business, but if that's
Yep, we're good.
agreeable, they come in every year. We'll let them know. We also have an event permit application for St. A's, an alumni gathering, football games, and the Giant Pumpkin Way-Off and Regatta. We also have 8 tax deed waivers for property owners who have issued a forbearing agreement to pay. The tax collector recommends deeding to Water Road. However, there are 2 issues which could prevent the
I'd
town.
like to remove that one. from
Yeah.
the consensus
Yeah.
vote.
Discussion.
Okay.
okay, so what we'll do is I'll take a vote to.
I'll make a motion to approve the consensus folder minus the Water Road property.
Second?
All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
You want to come back to that, Selectman
Yeah,
Devanza?
I think we,
Okay.
I don't think we'll be able to make a decision on that tonight anyway.
Okay, but we can have some discussion, but we'll just do
Yeah.
it later on. Next is a request for a proclamation, and this was a letter that went to all boards of selectmen in the state of New Hampshire. This year, more than 400 municipalities and 32 U.S. governors joined together to help end violence against women by issuing proclamations for Dating Violence Awareness Month and/or Sexual Assault Awareness Month. October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides a chance to build on this momentum of awareness and solidarity about this serious issue, which affects 4.8 million American women and creates opportunities for local events and activities across the nation. So I'm not going to read through this. All of you had gotten this in your packet. The question before the board is to issue a proclamation for the month of October. Does the board wish to draft this proclamation?
So moved.
Moved by Selectman Devanza. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Campusano. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those nay? I don't know where you voted on that. Did you?
He said yes.
You said yes, I'm sorry. 5-0.
The next item, we have 2 RSAs that the town administrator wants to bring to your attention, dealing with, one is the administrative enforcement of ordinances and local ordinance citations. What was pointed out to me was the difference clearly in one is it would take action of town meeting, and it would result in the infractions, or the people who were committing infractions would be given a ticket, and they would be expected to pay that ticket. The second, you would not need action at town meeting to approve that, but the process is going to be more lengthy, more involved, will involve the attorney and court action and people going to court, which could have a cost implication to it. I wish I could give you a better explanation than that, or that I knew more, but my understanding is that's it in a nutshell. And if it's something that you want to do that requires action at town meeting, then I guess we'll think along that line and make sure it gets on the warrant.
Yeah, I think, this warrants a little bit of a discussion, and, by way of recap, up until last year, if a individual, a citizen, disobeyed a town ordinance, there was no mechanism in which they could be given a summons, written summons in which they could pay a fine. For the most part, we would have to go through a court proceeding, issue a summons and complaint to that person. They'd go to a district court level. The town would have to have a prosecutor there, and it was a very expensive process for someone, hypothetically, who wasn't following or disobeying, say, the signed ordinance, which we've gotten some complaints about. So some people have asked, I know I've gotten emails from folks saying, well, why isn't this being enforced? Why isn't that being enforced at a more aggressive level? And I think the citizens need to know that, for the most part, our community does abide by the laws. Every once in a while, you have somebody who doesn't, and by sending them a letter, the vast majority of time, the problem gets resolved. Do we have a handful of folks who are repeat offenders who like to press the envelope? Sure. But the community has to then we have to weigh the options of going through a lengthy court process, which costs the community money, as opposed to trying to resolve it more amicably. This new legislation provides municipalities the opportunity to issue these summonses, where there could be a monetary fine, and that could be, so if someone is disobeying recite the trash ordinance, or a noise ordinance, or sign ordinance, you name it, the police or whoever municipal employee who is in charge with doing this can give them a warning. If it's done again, they can give them a summons. From there, they'd have to pay that summons. If they don't, then the town could prosecute and go to issue a warrant, for a district court appearance and all other stuff. So that's kind of where we're at, and I think what we have to decide is, do we want to pursue this in terms of, getting something drafted for town meeting in March of 2011, which will make it, in my opinion, a lot easier for us to try to have a little bit more teeth into our local ordinances, so that, to deal with the small minority of folks who simply are repeat offenders, shall we say. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity. There's two statutes, 31:39C and 31:39D, which are, to point here. Yep.
And the way I read these, this isn't an either or. 3139D is in effect regardless.
Right.
It's on the books
Right.
now, and it can be used. And
The other one is
3139C is the one that we would have to
is enabling. It's the
bring to town meeting.
And it would cover building, health codes,
You name it. Right.
everything, not just zoning violations.
So, what is the wishes of the board? Do we want to proceed and have town council draft up the language for a warrant, ordinance and warrant for 2011?
I do have some concerns about it, and some of the concerns that I have are, just because we have an ordinance that's on the books, doesn't mean that that ordinance is absolutely enforceable. A lot of it has to deal with, there are issues with the sign ordinance. There are things that are on the books that are in the zoning ordinance dealing with signs that aren't constitutional. So just because they're in our ordinance doesn't mean that they're enforceable. And I guess what I have a concern about is possibly people getting a summons for something that's not constitutional, that they don't really know, and it might be I don't know what, it might be a $25 fine, and they might just pay the $25 fine for something that's not really constitutional.
I guess my response to that would be, why do we have an ordinance that is not constitutional?
Because the planning board wants to have certain things in the zoning ordinance, because that's the way they perceive that they want the sign ordinance to be. I'll give you an example. There's sign ordinance in that regulates signs on motor vehicles. Town has no capability of enforcing signs on motor vehicles. You pay a registration for a fee, that's DOT, that's a state, it's a registered vehicle. We can't enforce it, but yet it's in the ordinance, so a lot of people read it and say, oh, I can't do that.
I think, though, that, and I'm not disagreeing with the comment that you just made, but when I look at the benefits of this legislation, it will give us a little bit more ability to address the small percentage of residents who continuously, in some cases it's done repeatedly, and there's really not a whole lot of teeth for us, because I think some of these individuals know that it's very costly for the town to pursue them legally, through the court system. And in this particular manner, if you don't pay the fine, then you would have to go to district court and pay court fees. In some instances, you may not be able to register your vehicle because you have outstanding summonses against you. So there's a lot of reasons why. And again, I don't see Goffstown, willy-nilly, doing these things. But when like I said, we have seen the code violations that are repeated, and this gives the town, some degree of leverage, with these individuals that I don't think that we currently have, due to the economics of spending money, thousands of dollars sometimes to get someone to comply. I just think it gives us a little bit easier route to go. So I'm in favor of this. Anyone else want to be heard? Nick?
I would agree with both of you. I think there may be ordinances that are outdated or not applicable any longer, and I think the boards that are responsible for those ordinances as we go on should be making an effort to eliminate them. But I look at this enabling statute as a tool. It gives the town an additional tool that may or may not be used, but it's there in the event that we need to use it to ensure the compliance with the ordinances.
Anyone else want to be heard?
I agree with everything that's been said so far.
Steve, you want to be heard on it?
No, all set, thank you.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to authorize the town administrator to work with local town council in the drafting of an ordinance for pursuant to section 3139C.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Selectman Fournier. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those nay? 4-1-0. All right.
Next item.
Yep.
Is just informational with regards to our status and position right now of the Parsons Drive Betterment Assessments. Just an update for you. And the next item, again, is an FYI regarding LGC's legal opinion on regulating kindergarten parking. This has been forwarded to Chief Sullivan for consideration when developing an amendment to the Glen Lake Beach Ordinance. And my next item, I believe you're going to have to refer to, I think it's at the back of the packet, the co-op opinion from Attorney Drescher.
And on that one, Janice, the week before last, at our last meeting, there was I guess a conditional vote, 3-2, to proceed with the co-op agreement, provided that town council was comfortable that we had the authorization to do so. And the opinion of Attorney Drescher was, I think the town meeting was okay. The issue will be whether the lawyers of the co-op think so. They want more, you may have to go to town meeting for a more specific authorization for a multi-year, 15-year. But I think the previous language is sufficient to cover the board, since it gives them authority to agree on such items and conditions as they deem best. So that's kind of, where we're at. I think, now that we have this, here, is there any, change of opinion? Does the board feel is that Attorney Drescher's, do you think that this should go to town meeting or not go to town meeting based upon that two-sentence reply?
Well, just a little clarification. If I remember the conversation we had last week, and I look at the question that was posed to Attorney Drescher, I don't think the full intent of at least my question was asked. His original interpretation letter to us was that he was not quite sure if a nonprofit was an intermunicipal agency, and the town vote was to give us authorization to enter into an intermunicipal agreement. And the question that I raised last week was, does this town vote meet the definition of intermunicipal agreement? And I don't think that was portrayed or put forward to Attorney Drescher in Sue's email.
And what we don't know is, and if Sue was here, she could possibly explain it, but what we don't know is whether or not there was a verbal conversation that preceded it. That being the case, since we don't know, I don't think we should be presumptuous in knowing. So I think it's prudent for us to get a clearer. That's just my opinion. You folks, we all decide this, but it's not in writing to us. It's not clear. It implies it, but it's not written. So
Yeah, no, I mean, Nick's absolutely right, because the discussion that we had was a good discussion on the nonprofit and the intermunicipal the agreement. I mean, I feel that it probably is. I couldn't swear to it.
Janice, do you?
That's where I think that's where we left off. It was as long as that it met that requirement that it was an intermunicipal agreement.
Right. Are you comfortable with what the conversation that we're having? Because
Yeah, I understand.
the language that was on the warrant was intermunicipal, agreement, and this is a co-op. It's a non-profit
So can
co-op.
anything that they come up with by way of an agreement be considered an intermunicipal agreement?
You got it.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And that's
I'll
all
check
we
with
need to,
Drescher.
right. So,
I'll check with Drescher, or I'll
And
find
the
out.
fact that it's with a co-op, even though the co-op is an establishment by municipalities, I mean, it probably is, but we just wanted to.
yeah, I just want to double check that.
All right, I'll let you know next week.
Okay.
And the last item I believe I have for you is we passed around earlier this evening a sidewalk opinion from Attorney Drescher. I think Nick printed his, and for those of you that didn't have a chance to do that, because I think we got these today, I will point out to you that piece of information that Sue gave me before she left today indicated that, in her opinion, if you reference page 3, the information that is in bold in the center of the page, I'm sorry.
Make sure that it is confidential.
Yes, I talked to Sue about that. It's not a legal opinion that involves a pending case, so it's okay to talk about it here. The information in that first bolded area that starts out with sidewalk policy.
Page 3, yeah.
In her opinion, should be language that's contained in the policy, but in her opinion, The second paragraph, the one below that, in her opinion, was not necessary. But nonetheless, that is information that the attorney gave us as well. So I guess it will be up to you all as to the
I
amount
mean,
of
I don't know,
information.
I personally didn't get a chance to read this.
Right,
Let's just hold on.
I think we table this, we'll hold it for next week.
So I'll bring it back next week.
Yeah.
And,
Just a quick question. That second paragraph is or those two paragraphs are what Attorney Drescher recommends.
correct.
And the town administrator is recommending that we not include.
Yeah, in her opinion, that was not necessary. The second
The second
paragraph is not necessary. Whether or not you agree or concur, it's
Keep
So-
that in mind as we review
Okay.
it this week. Thank you.
I'm just making a note here. All right.
And that is actually all that I have for the TA report. I guess if you will allow me, I know that Carl is coming in this evening to talk to you about his budget, and I believe that you received a packet of information with some budget
Right.
figures. And I don't know if the board has any preliminary questions right now with how that information is being displayed, but as you look at the 2011 column, you will see that we have a column for the
Janice?
department.
Could I
Yes.
just ask you to hold
All right,
for 5 minutes, as I think that I'm gonna quickly get through these committee reports.
oh, I'm
And then we'll
sorry.
go right into
Oh, yeah, no, that's
We'll
good.
go right into
Okay,
budget mode.
sorry, sure.
Because that's what Carl's gonna be coming here, for the most part, to talk about. Sewer Commission, they met recently, and David, you had
Yeah.
brief comments on that?
Brief one sentence. It was a meeting to start putting together the budget for the sewer commission for next year.
Okay.
That's about what they did, was start, but nothing was finished.
Okay. And again, when I mentioned, before with Janice, if you do get a chance, if you speak to any of the sewer commissioners, just trying to get some sort of a recap as to the project status on Mast Road.
I will be seeing them tomorrow night.
Okay. And more importantly, I don't know if some of you have talked to business owners in the area, but, obviously there's heightened sensitivity because, the road, has been, there's been construction going on for, 2.5 months, and it'll be continuing, I'm assuming, for an additional 2.5 months, and, right, if not longer, so,
Next summer.
yeah. All right. Next was planning board.
Planning board did meet last week, and they took some action. They did approve phasing requests for the Viking Orchard on Worthley Hill Road. They did approve 3 phases for that. Also on the Briar Woods, they voted to continue that to October 14th meeting. There was some drainage issues that needed to be resolved with that one. And also on the Fornia landscaping, the board continued that hearing and requested that the applicant return with a soil study, actually looking for test borings where the drainage pools were, and I just want the board to know that these are not like 4 foot, 5 foot deep. These are only like 1.5 foot deep. His engineer testified that there was no issue with them, that they were designed adequately, but that's what the board requested.
All right, any questions regarding
And
planning?
the compaction test, that's done after they're constructed or prior
No,
to?
they wanted test borings prior. They wanted to come back and have test borings.
For the purpose of, help. Do you know, or you don't know?
Well, because it was filled, it wasn't compacted, and nobody knows what soils are underneath there because it was filled. but the engineer that designed them is licensed in 4 states. And he said that the period of time that this process has gone through the freeze-thaw cycles, the amount of winters.
Well, I guess I'm just trying to understand what is the purpose of soil compact, what's the, what is the public interest in
I think at
knowing
one
that
point,
soils are-
one of the abutters experts testified that there was a concern over whether the slopes were stable because of the way it was
Right,
built.
and,
Okay.
but that person was asked what their credentials were for that. Were they an engineer? And they weren't an engineer. So the applicant had a engineer design this, and like I said, he's licensed in 4 states. And he said they was testified, the amount of the angle that's there and the distance that the pits or the ponds are from the edge of the bankment is adequate for the amount of freeze-thaw, and that Megan, the town engineer, also testified that there was no evidence of any erosion along the banks.
All right. That segues us into our all boards meeting that we had a couple of months ago, and we talked about trying to get a group of folks together. And I think, Nick, you mentioned, I thought it was you, maybe I'm mistaken, 2 or 3 weeks ago, trying to revive that. Was it you who wanted to spearhead it, or I just want to make sure that this thing doesn't get lost, because one of the things that came out of that all boards meeting was the notion that our land use boards would get together, and we were talking about ways to expedite the whole approval process, how to make the community a more business accommodating community from the town's perspective. And I don't want that to drop off. And is anybody willing to at least spark or start those discussions, or to at least schedule one with the chairs of the land use boards? I would think that would be planning, zoning, and conservation.
You have HDCs also on the
Okay.
use board.
We could talk about it later. I can put it on as an agenda item for next week. I just don't want to lose this because it is a critical piece. As a matter of fact, we'll put it on for next week, just to have a chat about that. And again, this goes back to our all boards meeting and land use boards getting together to talk about streamlining the process for applicants to try to develop, make it a little bit easier for those who want to increase our tax base, that type of thing. The other question that I had for the board, again, this will fall under new business, is obviously with the amount of with the current state of the economy, the construction going on in town, I've heard from business owners, they're understandably concerned about the economy. They're concerned about the construction, albeit necessary. Does the community, do we want to facilitate some sort of meeting of business owners, and not so much a gripe session, but more so where they can start to talk. We've talked before about, we have a Manchester Chamber of Commerce in which we are a member, but I don't think it hurts sometimes to have business owners get together and chat about what are some of the issues that are facing them, how can they help each other out, marketing, these types of ideas. Interestingly enough, when I was chatting with one of the business owners about the construction piece, I had stated, do you use social media at all? And the owner said, no, we were thinking about doing it, we just haven't done it yet. And it got me thinking that I'm not so sure that, I know some of our businesses use social media like Twitter and Facebook and others to communicate with their customers. But there are opportunities, I think, for business owners to get together to share best practices, whether that be marketing, whether that be just promoting their business, whether it is networking amongst themselves for services to try to keep the dollars in town. The other thing that I've been doing a lot of reading on it is there are some communities, I think it was out in it was the Midwest, and all the business in town decided they were going to use $2 bills as a symbol to try to keep, if you've all seen the studies that show that if you spend your money locally, it has a multiplier effect. And this town used $2 bills as a means to show people that we're going to give our customers $2 bills for change, and then they know that when they get the $2 bill back, that for the most part, it's kind of Goffstown money, or that town's money staying within the town. You can use that. You can use dollar coins, just as a way to it's a reflection of saying, okay, I need to think about spending my money locally. And I think the issue with Devrient Farms was a good example of, if folks spend their money at a local business, it helps our local businesses. It helps our tax base. Sure, it's easy to go 10 miles away, someplace else outside of town, and it might even be a tad bit less expensive to do that. But when you factor in gas money and other things that you're helping support your own community, it's worth spending maybe a little extra money to help a local business. So that's something that, I personally would like to tackle myself, and would be willing to work to set that up and to facilitate that if the board is okay with that, and to try to do it, sometime in October, maybe early November. And again, I think really not make it so much a complaint session, because I'm sure there will be some who might want it to go in that direction, but really try to engage the business owners and how we can help them. What are some of the obstacles that are out there, and maybe if we can share best practice that might help them. Is there anything downside to that you want to share, or? You're about to say something.
No.
You can. I mean, I'm not going to take offense if you think that. I just want if there are pitfalls, or if you think there's some issues, then I don't mind the criticism.
I don't see a pitfall, and I think any of us would welcome a dialogue with a group of business owners in town. And gather ideas about what the town could do to facilitate.
Yeah, see, I don't see
growth
right.
in any activity of dealing within the town.
I guess what I would like to know is I don't see the town, or shall we say government, being the entity that's going to solve problems for anyone. I don't. But what I do see is if we can start a conversation amongst the business owners so that they can help each other out, share those best practices, get feedback from businesses on are there things that the town does right now that we can improve upon, that would help you, not be a crutch per se, because we have no real place in there, but how can we help you grow your business, within the confines of what government should be doing. So with that, I'll work with the town administrator, and we'll try to facilitate that. And when it does get set, certainly you'll all be invited, and I'll share with you some of my ideas for what I wanted to discuss.
Is this above and beyond where the Business Expo is going?
The Business Expo, this is kind of, that's a good point, Phil. Last year when we had the Business Expo, after the Business Expo, EDC, their goal was to try to have somebody to have a luncheon or a dinner in which these businesses could communicate, to share best practices. It never happened. And for me, I saw that as a huge missed opportunity. Did those business owners talk at the Business Expo? Yeah, they did. But there are very few opportunities where you get business owners together where they can share ideas and network amongst themselves. I think this would be an opportunity for those businesses to do that and to talk about some marketing ideas, and perhaps to get some folks who do know about, say, social media, to help these folks. Give them come back and maybe set up a class at Goffstown High School on social media and how to improve your business using it, and just try to not step in the shoes, but just try to help as best we can. Certainly during a more challenging economy. That's it. And I think the Business Expo is just another way to kind of do that. All right, any other new business? So I'm gonna, Jan, I'll let you, go back to this whole issue with our budget and the budget summary.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the information that's contained in the columns that you are looking at on the document that's before you. 2011, you see that we have a heading, a category for a department head budget. Those represent figures for items, departments that department heads have submitted, and that I presume they're going to talk to you about as they come in regarding their needs. The second column is the default column. Make note that you received a default budget that was a draft default budget. It's more tightened up in this column. So this is, I guess, I hate to use the word final, but there are some changes in this default budget as compared to the one that you received maybe 2 weeks ago.
There was pages left in our room dated the 10th of September, and then this evening you've handed out 13 September. So, I'm assuming throw away the 10?
Yes, I think you want to use the one that you received today. The next
I'm not sure that's true. I think that this contains columns that the previous ones did not. So,
this is the older version, and
Right.
this one does not contain columns that this one has.
right, so
So this is more
I
up
don't
to
think
date.
it's enhanced. It's enhanced.
All right, so,
So you have a column for department head.
so this one just has more information.
Yes.
So as far as I'm concerned,
Yes.
I am not using
And the
that.
column that shows a department head with a $sign increase, that's showing you the increase or decrease as compared to the department head's request for 2011. And then subsequently, the last column is the percentage of change. If you look to the bottom of the page where we have CIP captured,
Yeah.
you'll see that there is information detailed in the Selectmen's column. So you can see the difference between the CIP request coming forward from planning to your recommendation, what it's looking like for CIP. So you can see the difference.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Which is the one that came from planning?
Well, it would be
Which
everything.
column?
It's going to be department head,
Okay,
all
that's
right?
what I meant. Yes.
And of course, important to note when you look at this, the comparison that you can look and make to 2010's adopted column.
What I would, I'm gonna ask this for, just one second. I'm gonna ask this, if the board thinks it's inappropriate, let me know, but I personally would like to get this spreadsheet. Would anyone else like a copy of it? The reason why I ask is because, for one, there's a couple of columns that I would like to know what percentage is the default over last year's adopted budget. And then when we start making our decisions, what percentage is that above? So I think I personally would like to play with it myself.
So you want it electronically?
Yeah, myself, as I think it
Okay.
gives me the opportunity to,
This,
work at the budget, that's all,
all of this
Yeah.
electronically. I started examining DPW today. After 4 hours of typing, I realized that it would have been simpler to have it electronically.
Because when you do it, you can.
Mix and
You
match
can,
columns.
yeah, you can, for lack of a better term, you can manipulate the spreadsheet if you're looking at different assumptions and to see where you might end up. And that just helps, us individually, at least me individually, try to figure out, where we're at.
I guess I thought you might have gotten these electronically to your email, but
I don't think
if
so.
not, you'll just have to
Did
bear
I got the
with-
fire department's electronically,
Okay.
that was the only one.
Okay.
All right, you just have to bear with me for a couple of days because I've got to go into the town administrator's files and
That's fine,
locate this. And
that's
I
fine.
know it's there.
Yeah.
I just have to locate
It's not a
it.
problem. Phil, you were,
Yeah, maybe it's just me, but the department head column is the column that came from the planning board. It's not really the department head's column anymore. It's now the planning board's.
Right, that's what came forward. That's what planning approved.
Right,
That's
so
a
it's
CIP
not really the
approved.
department heads.
Right.
So, I mean, that's confusing.
well, I think,
If it's just
and I think that's why it's highlighted and maybe,
highlighted, where is it?
well, it's kind of, when you right here, it looks like it's highlighted with the 5,185,000. It's highlighted on the spreadsheet.
No,
Right.
I'm talking about everything in the column. The heading on the column is department head,
Right.
but it's really what was approved by the planning board. The department head submitted the
So
planning.
planning board only deals with
I-
CIP items, right?
On my,
Okay.
on my exhibit,
No.
there's a blank space above with CIP. I simply wrote in the planning board recommendation below.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Right, that's what it is.
Nick?
Clarification on,
Otherwise, Janice would have to have a whole
Yeah, no,
nother
no,
column.
Okay, hold on. Next.
just a clarification on the 2010 adopted CIP.
Mhm.
Does that figure include special articles?
No, I don't believe so. Let me check the next page and see where it's.
Well, yeah,
No.
it would not, because then
Your
but then,
special articles are on the next
see,
page.
this is where, if you're looking at total bottom line numbers, Nick, it's what's in here.
Yeah,
Operating budget plus special articles, the ones in black.
Okay, because I remember last time we
Yes,
discussed this,
right,
that number
right.
was including
And I
special
guess
articles.
one very important piece I want to point out on page 2, the very last line, difference between 2010 adopted, you see a 2.9 figure. That does not include the $2 million reduction that you're looking at,
Yep.
that you made in CIP. So if you back out that approximate 2 million, you're looking at a approximately $900,000 difference.
I don't want to get,
Department head to
yeah,
2020.
if you could just make a note on the spreadsheet, I don't want to get like too picky, but if you freeze this here, it'll show up on the next page, which makes it a lot easier to read. So like,
Oh, the heading.
if you
You want the heading.
freeze the budget actuals, then we'll see it on the next page, and that would be a big help.
Before you get it electronically.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, I think it's like freeze panes, when you do that, and you can scroll and you see it. Okay, so this is our overview.
It'd be easier if from CIP down, went to the next page with that.
I agree.
And maybe change the headers to accurately reflect what, because CIP's headers are different than the department heads' budgets.
As if you have nothing else to do.
You can just give it to Selectman Pierce, he'll do it for you. He's good with the spreadsheets, right?
Thank you. I needed
You
something
say his
to do.
middle name was Excel?
Excel.
Excel.
He's
2 weeks, I'll be the welfare
he's-
director too.
He's excellent. All right. Anything else?
Petals for you.
Now, my question was a couple of things. In this default number, does the default what is the assumption for the default number?
That's always the question.
Well, okay, strike that. Does the default number cover, as we talked about, the average of the last 5 years for increases in benefits? Is that in this default number, or no?
With regards to your question, there are several things that you factor in here for this default number. Your utilities, we looked at what is public service recommending for an increase. We looked at fuel oil and heating oil.
No, I understand.
We went out,
I'm talking
those
about
types of things.
Medical.
Health and,
medical.
Yeah.
okay,
That's a
medical
big.
insurance.
That's the big elephant in the room always.
Okay.
So
We factored into the default number a 15% increase.
okay, That's what I wanted to know.
15%, that's the
Okay.
number that's sitting in there. That's in the department head estimate and the default.
Okay. Now, what about? We do not have the default number. Will not include any union or bargaining unit compensation because they have not been approved at town meeting.
You've
Now,
got placeholders on the other page for
Okay.
those. Those will be special articles.
what did the department heads, or what did the, your office put for default numbers for compensations? This board has not talked about any compensation, monetary, salary increases, COLA, anything at all. So, was there any built-in, did you build in an assumption, for that number? Because we haven't chatted about that.
Well, and I know that you're in the process of dealing with
Right.
union negotiations right now.
Okay.
And I guess what I want is I'd like to.
You need direction from us on that?
I need an opportunity to look at that again this week.
Okay.
Before I can answer
Yep.
that question.
Okay. Which means that we're also going to have some conversations in the short term about, where we're going, in that direction. So,
I just want to take a look at that. It
Yep,
could
yep.
very well be that there is a number represented in there, but I just want to make sure.
Yep. I got you. All right. Anything else? We're going to wait 3 minutes to bring Carl up. We have Chief Sullivan here. Welcome, Chief. How are you? You ever notice he's very happy after a Patriots victory? He comes in, he's smiling. Carl, are you ready to start early?
I am.
All right. You've got 22 minutes.
Awesome.
So please be brief.
Now, why would you say that to me?
Jan is a very big Jets fan, and there's a no.
I think Jan put
Cowboys.
you up to that.
All right, let's just start with a couple of things. For one, we'll start in order, and we'll go with your monthly update first, and that is in C. So, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, the big project, I think that it's taken a lot of our time and probably is most visible is the South Mast and Wallace Road project. You can see the biggest holdup we have there is a kind of a snafu on ordering the cobblestone. That was something overlooked by the contractor, and they're doing the best they can to speed it along, but until the cobblestones are delivered, the gravel apron will be present. One thing that inadvertently didn't make it into your packet, and I'll just mention it to you tonight, is I wanted to talk to you about the change order for that project. And when I say change order, if you recall last year,
Yeah, we have that.
you do have it.
Yes,
I
yes, we
didn't-
do.
It wasn't on the agenda, so
Right.
I didn't know if you had it in the.
And I'm gonna, if you would indulge me for a couple of minutes, the communication piece is big for me, and it's one of our goals. So I'm gonna just expand, as I had a conversation with you on Friday about this project. There are some projects that we are heavily involved in, such as this one. There's the other one, which is a sewer project, which is a sewer commission's project, which we have a very remote ancillary role. But with regard to this one, I called up Carl, asking him, what is what was the reason for the delay? And the issue was that the contractor, I guess, made an assumption that it was just going to be a regular type of cobblestone, a stock type cobblestone, when in fact the engineering specifications were for a larger cobblestone, which is, for lack of a better term, custom made. And therefore, due to their mistake, there is a lead time to manufacture these cobblestones. So the inner apron, and there's also some other parts to the design that have some cobblestone. That is what is currently being held up. Some citizens have asked me, well, how come this one is different than the Grassmere one? And I tell them, because the Grassmere one is finished and this one isn't finished, in simplistic terms. You have the apron, and there are two circles, well, three circles, but that second circle, which now has dirt in it, essentially. When the base pavement, when the pavement is additional pavement is, it'll be much higher, and it'll look very similar to the Grassmere roundabout. And there'll be cobblestone on that inner apron. Some folks have said, well, it's crazy. How can you expect a bus or something to go over that inner apron? Well, when it is completed, the intent is that buses, trucks, and trailers that you are supposed to go over the inner cobblestone apron. That's what it's designed for. Vehicles, you are supposed to stay in the travel lane. So, long story short, is that the project is not yet complete. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that our goal was to have a substantial completion of the roundabout and the the other portions of it done before school, probably about a week late in terms of that substantial completion. And then I just want to chat with you a little bit about, like, our contract calls for total completion in
First week in October.
first week of
sometime.
October.
Yeah.
So, long story short is, have we had delays? Yes, we have had delays. Are we holding the contractor accountable for the work they're doing? Yes. And we do expect that we'll have this project wrapped up by the time that the contract says it's supposed to be wrapped up. Again, I guess maybe I've been, this will be redundant for me to say this, but, this project is not a whole lot different than a kitchen remodel or other type project, whether it be landscaping project, where there's things come into play and they take a little longer than you think they are, and that's just the way that the industry, kind of goes. And I think the good part of it is, I think, from my own experience, is the roundabout, in terms of its functionality, it is functioning right now, and it's functioning fairly well. It is not completely done, and we hope to have that done, by that October, first week of October contract deadline. Is there anything else that you want us to let us know about that?
Yeah, well, as I was getting ready to tell you, last year, we had to change order out a bunch of drainage. If you remember the original design, there were kind of 4 problems in that
Right.
area. The least critical to the town, certainly not to the residents on that street, but to the town, was the stormwater problems on Pine Ridge. When our bids came in over budget, we had to make some cuts. We looked at public safety and
Taking that out, right,
factors,
yeah.
and we change ordered out the drainage improvements on Pine Ridge. The state, and as you also know, at last year's town meeting, we requested the authority from the town meeting to get that money, if the state had extra money available, allow us to borrow it, and that passed town meeting. We have been working all year with the state to try to get that money, and I wish I could tell you that we have 100% got it and we're all set. We're not 100%, but what that money comes from is the town of Plymouth was given an ARA project. They accepted it and began the work, but then subsequently found out that they could get a better deal for the town of Plymouth through a rural development, a USDA
Right.
program. So they spent this year applying to USDA, getting that grant approved. What had to happen in Plymouth is they had to spend down, there's matching requirements. I didn't understand all of it, but basically the town of Plymouth had to provide a certain amount of match money. So they've been tracking the invoices on the project till they got to a certain point where they meet the match for this RD grant, which they have now met as of the invoices at the end of August. So they've scheduled a closing with RD. It's a kind of grant, I guess they have to have a closing for, which they're scheduling. I don't know what it's scheduled for. But until that closing, and the town of Plymouth actually gets the money from RD, DES does not have the money to give us. You have seen the emails from DES. I think they've given us as much assurance
Yep.
as they possibly can, shy of giving us a formal approved document. The problem I have, and the reason I'm bringing it up tonight, is, as you know, we just talked about, the contractor over the next couple of weeks is winding down. The bid prices for the work on Pine Ridge was contingent on it being part of his work. If he demobilizes and sends all of his equipment back to Massachusetts, I can guarantee you we're not going to get him back to do that small amount of work for the same price if he has to demobilize and immobilize back up here. So we're kind of in a situation where if we want to get that work done, which I think we do, we're going to have to decide in the next week or two, with or without formal approval on the ARA money from DES. We don't have the ability to spend more. We don't have the spending authority or the borrowing authority to pay additional mobilization charges, to just say, all right, go ahead and go home and we'll call you when we get the money. So we kind of got a decision to make. As you see in my memo, I mean, my recommendation is I'm personally pretty comfortable that DES is on board. There's 4 projects that they want to make whole that were in the same position as us. when they get that money back from Plymouth, those are the priorities. They're gonna make those 4 projects whole.
Okay, what's the net? Okay, I'm gonna assume worst case scenario, and something happens, and that money does not get released. It's what, it's $90,000 of our money?
The total
Was
total
180,
project
wasn't it?
is 114, or
I'm
total
sorry,
change order.
that's right, 114.
Yeah.
Of
so
which the
57, half of it.
$57,000. Is there, basically, if we have to rob Peter to pay Paul here, what project would you put on hold until that happens?
Well, as you remember, when we did the road plan, we set aside $200,000 in contingencies for change orders we were mostly thinking of the sewer project
Right.
on Mass Road. They are getting into some of the drainage that we were afraid of down there.
Right.
However, so far, it's all been within the contingencies of the project, so they haven't had to come back to us to talk about additional monies. There are some other items down there that they are starting to talk to us about additional monies. Nothing that I can bring forward to the board yet. We're still kind of negotiating stuff out. But we're far enough along where, well, as a matter of fact, as of probably the end of this week, 2/3 of the main pipeline of that project will be installed. They'll have 1 phase left.
Now, Carl, this does not include, obviously, we have to shore up the sidewalks that were, that were ripped up. And then there's that wall. That's all, is that all part of
It's
the
all
first?
part of the first contract,
Okay,
right?
so the other part is something completely different, okay.
Yeah, basically what the change order is, and I don't know if I put a plan in your packet, a mini plan.
Yeah, we have it.
Right now, all the drainage up in the whole Pine Ridge, the backside of the Knollcrest neighborhood, it comes down Pine Ridge, and it basically discharged, there was an existing crossover pipe that drained into those backyards. It's been there for years. That's what we tied into, with the hope that in the future we'd be able to tie that out to the treatment system we have on East Union, but we didn't have the money to do it at the time. So that's basically what it is. It's tying Pine Ridge out there to the drainage system on East Union.
That was the part that was eliminated.
Right.
So the wall reconstruction was not part of that change order?
No, it was not.
That's still included in?
Yeah, and if you
this
look at their
project?
current schedule, that's actually the last thing they're gonna tackle. They're gonna kind of button up where they are before they tear open into that wall, but they're looking at like the second week in October, demoing that wall and starting to reconstruct the wall and the sidewalk. So,
We're gonna wait till the regatta weekend to
yeah.
get that.
And the sidewalk is being reversed, going to be put on the street side of the wall?
Right. It should really improve visibility coming around that curve.
Plus get the wall further away from the snow and salt.
All right, so let's tackle this thing, these things in pieces here. The DPW director is asking us to, for approval to proceed with the Pine Ridge drainage project. And that would, essentially be, with or without the release of the funds, although, again, from the email correspondence we have with DES, that it seems extremely favorable that it's gonna get released, just a matter of when.
Right.
Do we need a motion to that effect?
Question?
Yeah.
Just a quick question. The email talks about them waiting because they haven't met that threshold yet,
Yeah.
at the time of this email.
At the time of that email.
But they have met it.
They have. They just paid, last week they received a copy of the August invoice for that work, which they hadn't had at that time. And
So
it
is there
did
any
meet the
reason why they would not release the ARA funds now?
Well, like I said, they had to schedule a closing with USDA.
Well, I understand that, but they're not gonna use the ARA funds. They've already
have
met
used the ARA funds, and what's gonna happen is when they get the money from rural development,
They
they're
get the
gonna
money
pay
back.
back the ARA.
It's-
Okay.
So that's what
So
they're
the
waiting.
closing is when they get.
So
they
I
cut the
understand, so
check.
they're waiting for
Right.
funds. They
At the
can't even-
closing.
At the closing, they cut the check.
Right.
Right.
Well, I
Seems pretty, I feel pretty.
have a
reasonable.
motion to add back into the South Mass Drainage Project, the Pine Ridge improvements, Pine Ridge drainage improvements that were originally taken out, and we need to add back in.
Is there a second? second. Any further discussion? The only thing that I want to make very clear here is that the voters approved this last year contingent upon ARA funding. There is everything that we have here says that this money is going to be released. We're waiting for a closing date, so the assurances are extremely high here. So I think we're doing what the wishes of the community are as well. This has been, talked about this for a year and a half now.
I guess my last question is, from DES, we've received word that yes, the only thing, there is absolutely no hitch. The only thing we're waiting for is the money coming from.
Yeah, and we have to apply for an amendment to our SRF. It's just a paperwork thing, and I asked them if we could apply ahead of time, and they said they'd rather wait until they have the money in the coffers. But that should be a formality, and I would assume, this is an assumption on my part, but somewhere along the line, I'd have to go to Governor and Council for a final blessing before we actually get the money. But as I said, you see the priorities that DES is putting on all this, and I know that everybody involved has the same wish to make this.
Is there a chance it could not happen?
There is a remote chance it could not. As Scott said, there's certainly unforeseen, but there's a remote chance.
Question for Janice. I presume on your ledger of money coming in and out of the town that you have a line indicating that we're seeking reimbursement for $57,000.
Correct.
And that would roll over even into next year?
Yeah, we set it up as a receivable.
I'm gonna throw another little monkey wrench into this. Mobilization is obviously a cost savings for the current contractor, but mobilization is not really a factor for local contractors.
Well,
I guess where I'm saying here is if it didn't happen and it was a local contractors had to bid on this job with the 117,000 or whatever 120,000 that we have for this project, are you telling me that we wouldn't get any bites?
well, first of all, let me just correct. Local contractors have mobilization as well.
I understand that, but they don't have.
They don't have to
much,
move their equipment
right,
as far,
right,
but
right.
they would still have to secure bonds and all kinds of other costs that typically are borne in mobilization. The other thing I'm not sure of is whether a local contractor, remember that we're a partner in this with the state and the federal government. So I don't know what kind of mess we would have
Right, I gotcha.
interjecting a third contractor into, or another contractor into an ARA arrangement. I can't imagine they'd look real favorably on that. And it's complicated in that you have all of the payroll requirements and the Buy American requirements and all that other stuff that comes with ARA that these guys already kind of have in the system and are doing.
In looking at this, and that article was to apply for the grant. We were going forward with the project. The idea was just to apply for the grant for the extra 57.
Right.
So we were going forward no matter what with this portion of the project, was my understanding. The second thing I wanted to make sure on is that everyone was hoping for this to be done earlier. We all understand that. And it's not really the first week of October we're doing cobblestone, but they're scheduling to start doing the cobblestone middle of October. So people shouldn't be looking for the circle to be done the first week of October.
Right.
If we go into the drainage section down there, which was part of this project, between that and the cobblestones there and that project, first of all, I want to at least think that we're not going into next year.
No.
Second thing is,
Believe me, they want to get out of town too.
and second thing is, as far as going back out to bids, besides the other things that you spoke about, I think most people are looking for this project to be finished in its entirety and not being revisited back in these sections. I don't think that would be a wise choice. Do you have any idea when, at this point, because things have changed on the ground, are we talking the first week of November, you think? I mean, what conservative,
Well, yeah.
as best as your crystal ball has today.
It's not practical to think in New England that you can dig past Thanksgiving. So, these guys would have to get the work done by the middle of November at the very
And in
latest.
your conversations with them, because I think like most people, we're starting to go through it, it's starting to move through, things are looking good, but it seems to have slowed down. Do you see this?
Well, let me tell you.
You follow?
Yeah.
In other words, I'm not seeing a lot of equipment going forward in this process in those areas?
Here's the thing, I guess, that is in favor for them. The phases of work that they're moving into now is kind of cleanup and finish work. It's not excavator work. So this change order is excavator work. This is big pipe digging. The cobblestones are a subcontractor. That's not even Delorie's crew. The wall, they're going to demo the wall and do the excavation work, but then it's a subcontractor that comes in to build the new wall. So there's very minimal involvement that Delorie themselves have in the sidewalk part of the project. A lot of the landscaping and cleanup does not involve the big equipment. So that's what makes this so time critical is the excavators are kind of finishing up the major pipe work soon. I mean, in the next week or two. And as soon as that happens, that stuff gets loaded on a low bed and gets shipped out. So it's, we really need to get going on this pipe work. Even though the schedule has, time, the big equipment doesn't. So there will be some overlap.
So I guess the other issue is this change order, does it have completion date language in it?
There will be additional time, yes. I don't know exactly.
No, I understand that, but in terms of, for lack of a better term, a deadline, a drop dead date.
Yeah, what'll happen in the change order, and let me just look and see if I have the actual document, because it probably addresses. I haven't even received the document. You guys, what we'll do is when they bring the final, when the engineer approves the final change order, the amount is approved, but they're working on the actual signed documents. I would bring it back in here for your signature if you want to just make it contingent.
I guess I'll get with you in a second, Steve. I guess where I'm going with this thing is that, you talk about buttoning things up. It would be nice to say that by X date, preferably before the snow flies, that things are going to be buttoned up. The wall will be built. All the sidewalks are repaired. Whatever top coats of asphalt have to go down, and that we don't have to go through, a winter and then another spring of buttoning it up coming up in March and April.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, is that the expectation? And is that going to be hopefully the reality here? Because that, it seems to me that, again, it has slowed down, quite a bit. That really, there really hasn't been a whole lot of work done on, like, the sidewalks is a good example to try to get those things and buttoning those things up. And, at what time do we just say, okay, your deadline, I think October something was our deadline. It appears to me that the cobblestone issue is now going to stretch beyond that. What are we doing, there? And so that's where, I guess where I'm coming from.
Well, what'll happen, the change order form, when we get it, has the two lines. There's the dollar amount where the $114,000 would appear. Right next to it is an extension of time. So they will, in that document, they will also say we need an additional 24, 30, whatever it is, days that they feel they need to do this portion of work. That date, if approved, and that's what McFarland and Johnson and them are going back and forth with right now, it extends that October 6th completion date to whatever we all agree to.
I think Scott is aiming that the extension for the change order should apply to the work that's being performed under the change order,
not the whole project.
The whole project.
Right.
Like, my question is anything holding up putting down the final layer of asphalt on the circle?
Yes. Yeah, there's still, well, we don't want, when they install the cobbles, we don't want them tearing up the brand new asphalt.
Cobblestones have to go down first. Yep. The outer cobblestones on the outer circle, not the inner circle. That's independent of the asphalt.
Well, they're still going to have equipment moving the cobblestones around, bobcats and stuff, which we'd rather not.
And I couldn't envision someone going over that, if it's going to be layered up on a...
There is still going to be a lip, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, if you don't have that
Not as big a lip as there is now, but there will
someone
still be a
would
lip.
go over the lip, but,
Yeah, if you look at the cobblestone in the center, it's got a radius on it.
Yeah.
So the pavement's gonna go up to about that radius, so it might stick up maybe 2 inches or so.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
But going back to what Scott was going on, and and maybe it's just terminology, button up isn't, maybe it's the same, what it means to you might be a little different. I look at buttoning up as, hey, we got some things closed and we can come back and complete another date. I think what most people are trying to understand is, what is that completion date? And the second thing is that kind of concerns me a little bit now that we're getting close to that season, is when there's subcontractors involved, and I deal a lot with people and how they utilize subcontractors, and a lot of times, you know, they'll say, well, hey, I'm subletting that and it's out of my control. But yet, I don't look at it that way. You know, if in other words, if Delora decided to use subcontractors,
their problem.
it's their responsibility. So when I see dates changing, I wonder how that's working with these subcontractors, because all of a sudden, as they're pushed out, the next thing you know, they're trying to schedule that in. I mean, that's right. So when you say button up, are we talking completion?
Yeah.
And when we talking subcontractors,
Let me just,
are those
let
ducks
me
laid
try to
out?
clarify this.
Laid out?
I don't know the date, but you guys will have it. I will not approve, I won't even bring to you a date that goes beyond this construction season. I do not want this project to go beyond this construction season. So when that form gets to us, the form that we have to ultimately approve, it's gonna have a date somewhere around Thanksgiving or earlier for the
Including
completion of
subcontractors?
everything completely done. They need, obviously, some time to do this work. I mean, it's 114,000, there's quite a bit of pipe
Right,
work.
no, we say that, and again, there's some, like when you say landscaping, is that something that, I mean, you can't plant landscaping in the middle of November, but you can, it's a perfect time to do the landscaping now, because
Right. And see, it's different crews. You know, the guy running the excavator is not over planting tulips on the
Right,
side.
and
They're not the
right,
same
and I
people.
understand that, but I'm just saying, you know, just like we made the point before where, and again, I don't know if we were talking about the extent of landscaping in the inner part of the circle, but common sense would dictate that you wouldn't do that if you're gonna be having all this.
Well, that'll be the
Construction
garden
debris.
club next spring anyway.
Okay. All right, so we're just talking about the hedgerow and other things that will be done.
As part of the contract.
Just a quick question, there's no issue with the work being performed prior to the approval of the ARA?
No, I did confirm that, and that's not an issue. They understand the bind we're in.
Carl, when is anticipated that the asphalt plants will be closed?
Well, usually it's around the middle of December. I mean, it all depends on weather, but usually we're safe up until Thanksgiving and then sometime around
So
mid-December.
that won't be an issue?
No.
Okay, good.
No, and you can always, even when our plants close, we've been in a bind before and we've gotten asphalt out of Brock's. They have a plant in Methuen or somewhere that stays open later than all the others, so if you're really in a bind, you bring heated bodies up from that plant.
All right, I just wanna go back to my point before, and that is, if we do this change order, we're essentially giving Delore now another potentially month and a half to finish up the roundabout, which should have been done the first week of October. And I see this as a phase one and a phase two. Phase one, yeah, you should have had the roundabout done, you screwed up, you got the wrong stuff, and you should own up to that, or whatever, however you wanna deal with that. And then there's phase two, and you have, you know, you think you need 30 to 45 days to complete this phase two, and there's a date on that. I don't, and I know this is all negotiation, and it's, you know, sometimes things are out of your control, some things are in your control. I mean, I think they've owned up to the fact that they ordered the wrong cobblestones, but I see these as two separate and
Let me
distinct things.
try to put this in practical,
Yeah.
in practical terms. The only contractual hammer that we hold is liquidated damages. So theoretically, October, let's say it's October 6th, I don't remember the exact date, but let's say it's October 6th. If what your thought is, we hold their feet to the fire on the original contract and we treat this change order separately, I think we would be hard pressed to have a very cooperative contractor doing a good job for us on this change order if we were charging him $750 a day liquidated damages on the other part of it. You know, I think it's all part of, and you know, I've made you aware that this has been I guess I'd use the word tenuous. It's been a good learning experience for our young engineers to realize why we have contracts and why everything gets documented, because many of our local contractors, you can work on a handshake and it works out okay, but not in this case. So we have a lot of potential claims that are kind of hovering around the fringes, and it is a negotiation. Right now, there's a lot of olive branches being extended to try to stem off some of those potential claims that'll come back. And very soon, we're gonna sit down with tally sheets, and they're gonna say, okay, I got this, 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 and we're gonna say, yeah, but, you know, you did this, 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 and this, and we're gonna try to balance it all out, and if we're really lucky, we'll balance it out so that there's no impact that we have to come back and seek more money. But, you know, there's days, I mean, they sent us one change order looking for 42 more days, and we kind of laughed at them. But that's, you know, in their mind where they're coming from. And, you know, they document, this is why we need this time, and this is what you did to cause us to be delayed. And so there's a lot of back and forth, and I think it's going to be fine at the end. I think we're all professional, and once they get through and they can get their hands around the sting of what they didn't make on this project, or what it cost them, or, you know, whatever, we don't know what their balance sheet looks like. But we'll be able to sit down and work through those issues. So personally, I'd feel uncomfortable right now where we're asking them to come back and perform this extra work, which will benefit all the folks on Pine Ridge, if we're going to drop the hammer on them on the other project. I just think it's all one big project, and let's get the issues on the table and try to contain that final date, which is what kicks in the liquidated damages. But I'd like to approach it working together to get the job done.
But I also think on the flip side of it, whether you're a local contractor, or, I mean, it's their reputation too. I mean, and they're going to want a good recommendation from the town of Goffstown that somebody was satisfied with their work. It's just like you called up other communities where they did work.
Right.
I would assume that, you know, we might get that phone call as well. So I don't know. I understand where you're coming from, but I guess I always feel as if it's always our feet to the fire, and it's never anybody else's feet to the fire. So and we have to be the one who's always, you know, the good guy. And I don't know. I understand the position that we're in. I just don't like it.
Just a question I'm going to ask Janice on this one, and again, I'm only asking because I know there's a very minute, but there is a chance that this would not get approved.
Right.
When we look at Article 10, which passed at town meeting, the wording says that the drainage project was approved at the May 2009 special town meeting in the amount of $700,000. However, the bid came in $114,514 higher. This article will provide $114,514 appropriation contingent on 50% reimbursement from R. What position are we in if we approve this change order and that money doesn't come through?
As far as what?
Well, the article is only appropriating that money contingent on receipt of the R funds.
I could be wrong, but I think Selectman Fournier made the point, and it refreshed my memory. When we did these meetings and the explanations, et cetera, we said that if this article passes, we will get half the money back. If it doesn't pass, you know, we're paying the whole thing. So it's kind of stupid
But that's not what the article says.
You know.
Just saying, the article is
Well,
very specific at town meeting. What
Department of Revenue will look at this and say, you have $114,000 appropriation, and you've got $57,000 coming in. If at the end of the year, we don't get that, or we're told we're not gonna get it, not that we don't, if we're going to get it, whether we get the cash this year or not, doesn't matter. It becomes a receivable, so it's as good as getting the money. If we're told we're not, then that amount of money isn't going to be there. So there's a shortfall in what you projected you were going to get, and basically it comes out of your piggy bank at the end of the year. If you said you needed $50 and you only got 25, the other 25 has to come from somewhere.
I guess I'm not terribly concerned about this, because we have warrant articles that are set up for, this is what the total cost is, this is what the offsetting revenues are, and people vote on that, okay? Give you a good example. When I was, a school one, you go in with, and you're expecting X amount of reimbursement from the state for your tuition and let's say for catastrophic aid on special education or building aid. Then all of a sudden the legislature says, I'm sorry, we're not going to reimburse you 90% or 100% of your catastrophic aid. We're only going to give you 50 because we have the budget's been already voted upon. Technically, it was money that we thought we had, and then basically the school district, has to come up with that shortfall. So I think that's a good example of, yep, you voted on something based upon a certain revenue source, and that revenue source did not come in. I think the big thing here is that we have to recognize that if this thing does not happen, it's our obligation. We're paying the whole bill.
Right, that's my understanding.
And my recollection, when we had the special town meeting on this and also at the public hearings, it was basically, the project is going forward. And if you vote no on this, we're not gonna get a reimbursement, but the project's going forward. If you vote on this, then you're voting to get a reimbursement.
My recollection also, that was the delivery.
But if I could,
Yeah.
if this didn't pass, the money would have come from the budget, the operating budget. But this article appropriated $114,057, which was raised separately from the operating budget, contingent on receiving 57. So I'm just throwing that out. I don't know if that makes a difference where that article specifically authorized us to do it in this manner.
Well, did you already have an agreement that said the project was gonna cost you X amount, which included that additional 114? I don't know. You went out to bid, it came in over what your May 2000, whatever town meeting
Authorization.
By 100
said, by 100 and some, so you went back to get the additional.
114.
I believe between the messages that Carl has received from the state, there's sufficient reason to believe that the IRA money is coming forward. Janice is able to carry it as account receivable into the next year, if that would be the case. So we've cleared up the money issue. We've let Carl know that we want the contractor to proceed with the existing portions of the contract and not take advantage of delaying the existing portion of the contract now that he has an extra 3, 4, 5 weeks according to your change order. And that's up to you to manage that with him. We've had a motion.
Yep, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right. My discussion is, there's a lot of moving parts here for me. There's things that I don't personally like, but I think this is something that this drainage project benefits a lot of people along that area, something that needs to get done, and the process looks a little bit ugly, but it just needs to happen, so.
Welcome to Carl's world.
Yeah, no, it's just, listen, been around enough in terms of my own projects at work to know that this stuff just happens, and it's never pretty. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those nay?
Nay.
4-1. Okay, next subject is, hold on. Slope stabilization.
Yes, we have a pre-construction meeting on that tomorrow. Right now, there are 8 contractors with plans out that we expect to be there tomorrow. Bids are due on the 21st, and the Sewer Commission has a meeting scheduled for the evening of the 21st to hopefully award somebody. As you know, we're getting awful tight on construction season, and this is another one we want to get done prior to winter.
Okay, so for those that want to be in the know, this is a slope stabilization project at the cap of the landfill.
Yeah, it's actually on the rail trail.
Rail trail.
Between
Right.
Moose Club Park. Yeah,
Okay.
it's between Moose Club Park and the back of the landfill, Sandy Beach. It's kind of right in the middle there. And it's an area where the slope failed during the Mother's Day '06 floods. We got FEMA money, 80% grant from FEMA to make those repairs and stabilize that slope. So the work is finally, the permits are done and we're out to bid. And
Question on it, Carl. When this was originally being designed, there was one company that was looking at it, putting a stainless steel mesh over that for some reason never got
Cost.
approved.
it was cost.
Looking back, it's hindsight's usually 20/20. If that cost had been incurred, would we possibly be at a break even at this point?
No, because we really haven't spent. We've spent time. Is what we've spent working through permit issues, but we haven't really been spending money. We've kind of stayed within the allocated design budgets. It's just stretched out because we worked extensively with DES and the Army Corps of Engineers to get those permits. The design looks very much like the conceptual design did back in 2006. It's been tweaked and fine-tuned a little bit and minimized. The footprint where we're going to fill into the river has been minimized, working with DES. So it's been tweaked and adjusted, but it's basically the same design we had back in 2006.
So, in your opinion, the stainless steel mesh wouldn't have?
That was very costly. All of those man-made stabilization options were very costly. Pinning and soil anchors and sheet pile walls. We looked at all of those options, and they were all extremely expensive. This is pretty cost effective.
All right,
Thank
we're moving on. Quotes have started to come in on Lynchville-Danis Park Water Services. That project is moving forward.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Megan and Mark got together today. I guess there's quite a few quotes and letters of approval. Supposedly went out in the mail today, so should see some work down there very soon. We had to help Director Wilhelmy. There's, Parks and Rec's been asking us for a while for some help. We happen to have a machine down in Penardville, so we were able to get up there and do some work in Roy Park to take care of it.
Yeah, because that water goes sheets right over that field, that softball field.
Yeah. And then, as far as the road plan, it's been a very productive month. We didn't get to cross as many boxes off the list, but the ones that we crossed off were pretty substantial. Basically, we got, Tibbetts Hill and Lauren Lane kind of put back together before school, which was great news. I don't know if you've been by, but Little Meadow Lane is done, and Mountain View is done, and a good chunk of the work out of Moset is already complete. Tomorrow night, we have a information meeting with the residents of Miles Ave, and basically be able to point around a corner at Moset and say, see over there, that's what we're going to do here, and it should go pretty easily. The folks up on Moset are absolutely thrilled with us right now, so I think that was definitely a good road to do. We have our engineer, our temporary engineer has been working out terrifically. I mean, he's the one that helped us get all these last minute things that are out to bid. And right now we're working on the sidewalk plan. It's been a while since we visited on the sidewalk plan. As I look back in the minutes from when we did talk about it.
Can I interrupt you for one point?
Sure.
If I may. A lot of times the glass is half empty, and we talk and people criticize about different projects, and I think I want to compliment Carl, you and your team. We kind of glossed over some of these projects, but whether it be Tibbetts and Lauren and Meadow and Mountain, all these other ones that have been done, Moset. I mean, obviously, and Selectman Camposano, I think you deserve some praise too, because that was something that we kind of put that Catamount Moset thing in. I think we've stretched our road program dollars quite a bit and accomplished a lot this past summer. And, I think your crews did a really good job in doing a lot of that work. And I think, the stuff that you did have control over, which was Tibbetts and Lauren and these other ones, you got done relatively quickly. And, again, it shows that sometimes, when we do things internally, it works out very well. I just want to say this was a case this year where I think everything worked really well on the DPW side and the projects that you guys did, and you should be commended for it. And I know that right now the attention is on South Mast and the roundabout, and these are projects that we have contracted out. Yes, we have had hiccups. There's no doubt about it, but it's like any other construction project, unfortunately. And sometimes they work out real well. Sometimes there's blips, but you guys did a really good job, I think, stretching the money around, especially on those projects. I mean, I live in one of those neighborhoods, and Tibbetts Hill and Lauren Lane were rough. And, those people, I know myself, appreciate the fact that it's a much better road to drive on, and we did it in a creative way,
Yeah. Well,
So-
I appreciate that, and I'm sure the crew would appreciate it as well. Just to, I guess to recap, as you see your updated list, the vast majority of the work that we can get done is done. There's a big chunk in Pinardville that we're kind of avoiding because of the disruption to business and traffic. Selectman Pierce actually asked me the question today, and I'll just, tell the board, our intention is that this work in Pinardville won't drop off the list. Our contracts with our paving vendors are written such that we can encumber that money. And, our intention is this money would just fold over and those projects will be completed as soon as we can get to them in the spring. I was asked a question earlier about the library parking lot as well, and I just wanted you to see that I added, we estimate to pave, we originally looked at just paving the gravel area that we did for the new spaces. And that graveling was like, $4,000. But if you look at the rest of the pavement that leads to it, it literally was paved over loam, so there's no structure to it, there's no stability to it. So what we'd like to do is just muck that out, gravel it, and pave it, and hopefully be done with it. And then if we ever incorporate a bigger parking lot, that could all just be folded into the bigger parking lot. But it doesn't make much sense to us to pave the little square they're going to park on if they're going to drive through mud to get to it. So that was our thought. So it's about $7,000 to do that and have a paved driveway in and those spaces paved.
5 plus the 7, is what you're saying?
No, 7 total.
So
We'll just
5
take
plus
care
the
of it.
2.
Yeah. So it's,
Any questions?
Will you be paving that little strip of grass between the existing parking lot and the driveway?
we were gonna leave that, I think. I remember we walked around out there with Diane and cars are still gonna park. I can't recall if I know we had a big discussion about whether to consolidate into one entrance and eliminate 2 of those spaces so that people could come in and then access the parking. I don't remember what.
Probably wouldn't change your cost much. It's not.
No, it's not gonna be significant cost difference, and I just don't, I'm not sure how to.
I think Selectman Campusano, just from, visiting there a lot, I think makes a good point. I mean, you have to.
If I may, not even if you do the entire strip, but maybe a couple of areas smaller than a vehicle, but to allow individuals to walk from, because they'll be walking from the new parking lot down that paved road, but then there's a chance.
Like a little sidewalk crossovers.
Just something so it's a level pavement from the parking area into the
The reason,
existing library.
I think the other point was that even where those existing spaces are right now, it's not always easy to back up because you have that rock wall there. So if you were able to get another even 3 or 4 feet, it just makes it that much easier to back out. So I trust that you can work that out with the library, but I appreciate, again, that's another thing that we're able to get in there, and I think it provides a pretty good intermediate solution to the parking situation there. David,
Carl?
you had something?
Under the sidewalk paragraphs,
Yeah.
the last item for extending the lane of the road, Mass Road, extending the lane to be a bike,
Yeah.
something we call it a bike lane. You say need to coordinate with the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. Are they forthcoming? Whatever they need to have oversight on?
They really don't need oversight. It's more of a courtesy, just to let them know we're gonna do it. But that from literally the stop bars, if you're coming out of Pinardville, back, it's all the town. When they rebuilt that intersection, they went into our section a little bit for to taper down their lanes and all that stuff, but it's really our pavement. So it's more just a courtesy, and I'll get I'll call them, the bigger issue there is dealing with the encroachments, the wall, the fence, those issues that are encroachments into the right of way that we need to deal with. That's not much.
Nothing a bobcat can't handle, right? Or-
No,
This is a legal thing?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
This is a goodwill
Oh,
working with
okay.
our abutting residents kind of thing.
But they've been noticed, right?
Not yet. They
Okay.
will be, though.
All right. So, but this is another one that we anticipate to be,
I very much hope to get this done.
very
yeah.
much hope.
Very
That's-
much hope.
Hope and change is not good. What's the, what do
Notice he
we?
didn't say change.
No, what, I'm sorry, I might have offended anybody out there, but does hope is, that's a good chance?
I think it's a good chance.
Okay.
I think it's a good
All right.
chance. It depends if we get to keep our engineer longer than September.
All right, and I think you left off with the sidewalks, didn't you? Or no?
Yeah, we were just talking, that is what we're currently working on, and, the board, if you look, I think when we talked, we all kind of agreed that priority one is priority one.
Right.
Yes, we all understand. And then the difference came, we had set priority two as the next low-hanging fruit. Let's take care of the ADA ramps. Selectman Campusano pointed out that the law says you don't need to do those ramps unless you're rebuilding the sidewalk. I verified that, you're correct. So there's no,
I don't remember that.
well, we were gonna go around and everywhere that we had done sidewalks, we had sidewalks that we could maintain, they're perfectly fine sidewalks, but they didn't have the
tip
tip downs. That was our priority too. And I think the point you made was, why don't we take care of the sidewalks that we can't even maintain first? Let's tackle those, and then we can go back and take care of those last issues, which I researched, and I think you're correct. So what we did is we dusted that plan off, because we want to try to develop a quick turnaround RFP to try to get the sidewalk work done this year as well. The problem is, most of those priority one things are in Penodville, kind of right in ground zero of that sewer project. So, thinking ahead of this year and next year we have the 2011 celebrations, and we aren't going to want to be anywhere near the village, I don't think, next year, digging and messing up with sidewalks and curbs. What I'd like to do is focus our energy this year, even though it's not exactly following those priorities, but put together a project that focuses on sidewalks in the village area this year. And then next year, we can make it up by focusing our energies and get caught up on issues in Penodville. That would keep us out of the village in 2011, digging up sidewalks, and it just seems to me like it would flow very nicely. So we've got some rough plans together, and we're starting to work on estimates, but I hope I'll have a bid package ready to go this week is what I'm hoping for.
Okay. All right.
That makes sense to everybody.
Next is,
The surplus vehicles, pretty straightforward. I think in all cases except the Taurus wagon, we're just recommending the high bidder. The Taurus wagon, the high bid was $78. Just for the heck of it, we called Hebert's and said, if we drag it over to you, what will you give us for it? And they said $200. So if the board wants to reject that $78 bid, we'll just tow the thing over to Hebert's and get $200 from them, which seemed to make more sense to us.
Motion to accept the used vehicle auction results indicated for the high bidders, and that the 94 Taurus would be sold to Hebert's.
okay, for the record, I'll read it in. The 2005 Crown Vic high bid was Grace Quality Used Cars for $2,850. The 2004 Crown Victoria, the high bid was Bay Ridge Motors for $1,897. And the 2001 Crown Vic, the high bid was Chicago Motors at $607. And to reiterate what Selectman Pierce just stated, the 1994 Taurus, the bid of $78 from John's Auto will be rejected, and we will be proceeding with Hebert's Auto for $200, which is for scrap metal. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? All those abstaining? I guess that's 5-0. I'm never good with you, Steve, for some reason. I never pick up.
Maybe you have selective listening.
Maybe you gotta speak up.
Okay, so the next item I have is a sidewalk tractor. Just to give you a real quick history on this, we had budgeted years ago 130,000 or so, 117, 120, it kind of went up every year, but the Holder sidewalk tractor, which is the big one with the sander on the back, is in need of replacement. We had very, very good luck using the Bobcat that we got a couple of years ago to do sidewalks, so we reduced our budget request to replace the Holder. Instead of replacing it with another Holder, we thought we could replace it with another Bobcat. The issue that we have, and the reason I'm not here with an RFP, is Bobcat New Hampshire is Bobcat New Hampshire. There's not a whole bunch of these vendors around. We could go to other states. The way Bobcat has their franchises set up, there's kind of one in each state, and you kind of get the same price from all of them. All of our attachments are Bobcat. We have 2 of them now, and the attachments are all interchangeable. So what we're looking to do is get a 3rd unit. The 2 we have now, by the way, one is the sidewalk, quote-unquote, versatile year-round, whatever we want to use it for, piece of equipment. The other one is in the recycling building. So we pull it out if we had a real problem, but that's the piece of equipment that we use to load the hopper in the recycling building. So basically what you have before you is a quote from Bobcat, New Hampshire for the same unit that we have that does sidewalks now. And as I say, the couple of things we added, Bobcat now has, one of the fears we had, and one of the things that we were getting away from the Holder, is the Holder had a hopper, a little spreader on the back. It could treat sidewalks, spread sand and salt out of a spreader on the back of it. Up until this year, Bobcat did not have anything like that. Bobcat now does have a spreader that they can mount on a tractor. So basically, we're looking to get 2 of them, as well as all of the stuff we need for the original Bobcat. And I think they have a better plow arrangement now than they had, so we're looking to buy 2 plows as well. So this would give us 2 complete setups for either end of town, and it does fall within our budget. 65, we're looking for approval to award $60,557.
A quick question on like this, the grapple. I
Yep.
assume that's what that is, right?
Yep.
Obviously, the Bobcat's it's a versatile piece of equipment, but do we necessarily need the grapple attachment for all 3 of these things? Or is this
No,
just for
we do not have a grapple now
all?
at all.
Okay.
And what we're hoping to do with that,
It's like a rail trail thing or something?
no, it's more, I don't know if you've ever been down to and seen after we grind brush, there's this pile
Yeah, I know,
of
I've seen it, yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
that can't go through the grinder.
Right.
And it's the same we have a big pile of kind of loam and stumps and rocks that we have to pay somebody to come in and sift for us. What this grapple, the way it's set up, our feeling is that we're going to be able to sift out those stumps and everything so that they could be ground and be left with loam, a loamy material that we could then incorporate into our loam. So it's a piece of equipment we're hoping to be able to, when we have some time in the yard that they could use it, we would be able to save having to rent a piece of equipment to come screen that stuff out for us.
Right, Nick?
I guess one of the things we've discussed over and over again are cost estimates that we get for CIP. And we had a $65,000 cost estimate for the Bobcat, which I'm in support of getting. My issue is all of the attachments. I went back to the minutes to look at that particular conversation in CIP, and the statement was the $65,000 will buy the Bobcat, and we already have a lot of attachments. But then again, we see, the angle broom, the tilt attach, the quick tack water kit, the grapple, the SP5 spreader, which is different from the sidewalk spreader. The low-profile bucket is nearly $15,000 over the basic cost of the sidewalk tractor, snow blower, V-blades. So I don't have a problem with approval of the sidewalk tractor, but I would like to see that without all of the additional attachments. Again, this is a CIP capital purchase, not a budget line to purchase all of these other, I mean, the idea here was to purchase a sidewalk tractor.
Any other comments?
If I could just comment
Oh,
to
okay.
that. The way Bobcat prices things, the tractor itself is just 4 wheels in the unit. It has no bucket on it, has no
Sand.
plows on it. We use turf tires in the summer and a different set of tires in the winter that are a thinner profile. So all of those things on here look like add-ons and extras. They're really not. They're part of the integral part of the basic unit. High-flow hydraulics to run the attachments we already have.
I'm not referring to those. In other words, a 68-inch angle broom is a $4,000
Right,
attachment.
right.
The
And that,
quick tack water kit is a $1,000 additional accessory.
Wouldn't you use, I'm not to, but I've seen it in other municipalities, not here, but they actually put a broom on
Right.
a Bobcat when you have like a half an inch,
Sweep the
or
sidewalks,
they
yeah.
sweep it, because you can't pick anything up, so they just, it almost like it sweeps the snow away. That's what I've seen. I don't know if that's what you use it for, but
well, that and cleaning up.
And
Obviously
Those are
cleaning
out
up,
when
right,
we're,
and
when
sand
we're
and other
on
stuff, but-
construction jobs, they're for cleanup. And we do have a broom. We have one broom now. But we have 2 crews working on different parts of town and, like running back and forth with it. And, granted, it's $3,000 or whatever it is. But over the life of the machine, it doesn't take long, trucking attachments back and forth to add up to just make it worthwhile to have one on each machine. So you can have a full setup if you're doing summer work. You can have a Bobcat with each crew and
How does that affect, and somebody would have to sit down and do the math. If we had a holder tractor or another bombardier, some other type of sidewalk tractor that goes out only when it snows, how many years of life do we have versus now equipment that we're using 24/7, or not 24/7, but 365 days a year versus just when it snows?
well, I think, personally, I think that's a better thing. Because anytime that you can have a piece of equipment that you're utilizing more than just sitting
Higher
around
efficiency.
it's higher efficiency. The
Higher
other-
replacement cost.
True, but I think we're also, we're asking our DPW to do a lot of these smaller jobs. The cemetery parking lot, the parking lot, the library, the cemetery next year, where smaller pieces of equipment like this
Plus
really
they work down at
are
Public
very
Work-
are
down at, Parks and
transfers.
Rec.
Right, I'm saying they're extremely versatile. We're talking about Parks and Rec doing rail trail maintenance. A Bobcat, in my opinion, would be perfect for doing some light type work to clean up. So there are some things, that, you say like an excavator. Well, an excavator can only really be used for certain functions, and you really got to work hard to get it to its utilization. I think arguably the Bobcat is a extremely versatile piece of equipment that can be used, all year round by using the, I was curious to see what we'd use the grapple for, but the spreader, that makes sense to me. You've explained why you'd use the grapple. I have no clue what these quick tack water kit,
That was my question.
Yeah,
What is
that,
it?
that goes with the broom.
Feeds the dust.
Those are all,
okay,
yeah,
so that
that's the dust.
would, and then the other big ticket item was the 2 V blades. So we're gonna have a snow blower attachment, and then we'll also have the V blade, because I guess in some cases, depending upon
Much
the size
faster
of
to
it.
just
Right,
plow.
right. And then, so for me, there was 1 or 2 items that were, one was 3,200, the other one was 1,000. I didn't understand what they were, but, I don't know. Yes, you wanted to.
Motion to purchase the Bobcat S-185 with the options and attachments as detailed in the quotation received by DPW. in the amount of $60,557.
Is there a second? Seconded by Selectman Devanza. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those against?
Nay.
4-1-0.
As far as budget, my understanding was we're gonna kind of just go through highlights, items that we saw a big change and a need for.
I just had one
Yeah.
other question before we jump out. And I realize that the drainage project through Mass Road is a sewer commission
Yeah.
project, but maybe, only because I received a piece of information and honestly it was like third or fourth hand, so I'm just looking for some verification. We understand it's taking longer. Is this a multi-year project down
It
there
is.
now?
It is. Their completion date has always been next year sometime.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to, this is not
his-
Carl's
his-
project.
I just wanted to hear, I know it's not
No.
Carl's
DPW, just, again, they have meetings so that they're kept abreast of what's going on. And, you know, Steve and I had a conversation because he had asked me, and I said, I could have sworn that, I thought it was just a
1 year.
1 year, and so I apologize. I thought that's what it was, and so if I gave out wrong information to folks, I apologize. So for some
just-
reason, I thought it was a construction season type job. I didn't know it was longer than that.
Just to, I wasn't here for the beginning of your meeting. Did you do the announcement of the traffic?
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
Yes.
for tomorrow. Good. Okay.
And we'll do that again, actually. So for those who didn't tune in at 6 o'clock, tomorrow there is voting at Goffstown High School and also at Bartlett Elementary School. We did get a bulletin from DPW and the police department that there will be construction going on in front of the Bartlett School. And if you're coming on Mass Road, if you're coming from the Manchester side, you'll be able to execute a right-hand turn right into Bartlett School. However, if you're coming more from the village area going towards Manchester, you will be detoured around, so you will not be able to make a left-hand turn into Bartlett Elementary.
Come into the school parking lot
Right.
from the rear.
You'll be coming in from, I think it's Higgins Street from the rear, okay? So be patient. I'm sure there'll be police there that will be directing traffic. If you have any questions, just speak to the officer. Certainly want to encourage people to vote. It's a very important primary. But just recognize that, again, for those folks coming from the Manchester side, just make your typical right-hand turn. If you are coming from the other direction, you'll be detoured around to go to the back of the school through Hagan Street. So that's it for that.
Well, if we're ready, I'll kind of go through the budget. This was a pretty difficult budget for me because, you know, as the board knows, over the last several years, every year we've kind of cut back, and I found myself kind of staring at this, looking for places to cut, and spent more time thinking about additional revenues, I guess, than because there just weren't that many places where I could go to really balance cuts without impacting service. You know, as we talked about earlier, the road plan in particular has taken some serious hits. Roads have been pushed out. We've been trying to be more creative and find ways to stretch the dollars. But the same, you know, some of the things that I guess happens behind the scenes that the voting public isn't aware of, you know, we've had to, because of votes at town meeting and the budget process, we've had to extend the life of our equipment on the matrix. You know, trucks that we used to replace every 10 years or try to replace every 10 years are now stretched out to 12 years. We've had to defer several pieces of large equipment. And, you know, the problem with deferring those kind of things is they kind of build up and the maintenance costs go up, and it really has a domino effect through the budget. With that in mind, as I went through the budget, I really did try to keep any increases in lines to an absolute minimum. In the cemetery operations, as you know, we work with the cemetery trustees. They ultimately have the obligation of kind of overseeing that budget. Now, let me just step back a minute and tell you some overarching themes, and Janice hit on some of them when she was giving you the overview. We went with the staff assumptions that Town Hall made. There are no increases in hours or staff positions or anything in this budget. As far as consumables that we all bulk purchase together, things like diesel fuel, gasoline, heating oil, all those things, it's an assumption based on our consumption, our average consumption times an estimated bid price or an estimated price that we're basically all using the same equation. So those lines, the payroll lines and fuel lines and electricity lines, you'll see some adjustment, but it should be the same adjustment in my lines as in the chief's lines, as in, we all kind of use the same assumption, and there's nothing magical about it. So the lines I'm going to talk about tonight are more the ones that are just kind of within DPW's discretion, I suppose, to impact. In cemeteries, the only change really that was made, other than what I just mentioned, is last year there was a cut. You see a detail here for cemetery operations improvements other than buildings. The trustees have been trying to put a well out at the Shirley Hill Cemetery. They'd like to pave. This money ends up getting used every year for other things, like within the cemetery, but things like headstone repair and fence repair run over. So they're with the cuts and everything, they're never able to get these little items done. So they wanted to ask for the additional money to get these items completed next year. Public Works uniforms. Last year, again, there was kind of just I don't want to call it a random cut, but it wasn't like an item was cut. It was just let's cut this line. And basically what we've been unable to do for a few years is, we buy winter jackets for the guys. We buy hats and sweatshirts and those sorts of things, with the logo on them. We have not been able to do that for the last 2 or 3 years. The jackets and stuff that most of the guys have are getting pretty shabby. So I am asking to restore that money so that we can replace those pieces of winter clothing. Traffic light repair, is an ongoing kind of thing that we maintain the 4 lighted now 5 lighted intersections in town. But you see it's a pretty big hit. There is one in particular, the Penard Square, Penard Street and Mass Road, the controller cabinet. It's the box that's on the sidewalk. It's so rusted and rotted out that it can't even hold the controllers, the electrical controllers, anymore. There's like no metal to really attach them to. The controllers are also outdated. So, the quote I got from the vendor, our traffic light vendor, is we need to think about $10,000 to just replace that whole cabinet and controller setup down there in Penard Square. It's the kind of thing that we're hoping we don't have some kind of catastrophic failure. I mean, obviously that's a very busy intersection. We want to replace it before it actually fails. But it's getting to the point, he's been telling me about it for a few years, and I've kind of put it off, and we're to the point where he just says, don't put it off anymore. It really needs to get done. Painting and reconditioning equipment. This one we have some leverage in. We're asking for $81,500. You see half of that, $40,000, is for a new body for the 10-wheeler. This board has so far stated that the 10-wheeler and garbage truck are high priority. Those are the vehicles that failed last year at town meeting. If we budget for the replacement of the vehicle, obviously that $40,000 isn't needed. But if the vehicle doesn't get replaced, we can't even get through winter. The corner posts on that body, we don't even want to go into winter with it. So we would need to replace at least the body to get through the winter, or to get through the rest of winter. So that's a $40,000 hit. The loader is out in 2013 for replacement. I think this reconditioning, there are pins and bushings, piston issues, a whole list of little stuff, as well as painting that needs to be done to it to get it through the next 4 years or 3 years. 4 years by the time it's replaced. The next two, the dozer and the grader, you probably remember last year we had a lot of discussion about these two items, very costly items. This is one of those cost savings measures. Those are two pieces of equipment that when we need them, and we use them. But they're, Goffstown, we have a lot of paved roads. They're not pieces of equipment that we use every single day. So what we've done is we've shifted from replacing with new equipment to kind of overhauling the ones we have and or buying used. And they're out a couple of years in the matrix. However, the transmission, particularly the dozer transmission, essentially the dozer is not going to move until we can repair the transmission. I mean, it's every time we start it, we're afraid that something's going to go wrong in the transmission. These prices are assuming the transmission doesn't blow up. I mean, this is assuming that we get to it before, a catastrophic failure. If the housing and everything gets damaged, then it would be significantly more than what we're looking at here. So the prices that you see, if you're looking out years in CIP for these two pieces of equipment, if we budget this and do this work, that is also built into those out year CIP estimates. So the numbers could be adjusted down because the transmissions were part of that. I don't know if you've been in DPW's office lately, but the floor is broken and spalling up in several areas. That building, the office building, when it was built, those of you that were around when it was built, it was a modular building, came in 6 pieces. And all of those seams where the buildings were joined, they heave and expand differently. So, when it was delivered, the floors were basically already installed, and it was just a case of blending the tile over the seam. But the flooring contractors that we've had in to look at it, they kind of want to put a whole new subfloor over those seams and then put new tile on top of that. So that's the estimate there for the flooring. And as time progresses, that may even change because it's just been pointed out to me. I wasn't aware of it before we submitted the budget, but the roof has some serious issues. And we just got a quote in for the roof, and that 10,000 may go into the roof if the roof becomes more of an issue. But it's basically the same thing on the roof.
How old is that building? 10 years old?
Yeah, it's 10 years old. The salt line, the only reason it's a decrease, but what I wanted to point out to the board, again, we use a 5-year average on our tonnage. I guess I want to pensively pat Mike Hillhouse on the back. We have really, over the last couple of years, been working very hard to get our hands around how much salt we're applying to the roads. As you can see, it's a significant budget line, but we also have been kind of watching our counterparts along the I-93 corridor. When DOT went through their environmental permitting for the widening of I-93, EPA made them do an extensive fluoride study and the impact that road salt was having on all of the receiving waters that crossed I-93. So that a salt work group was put together, and I've actually been invited down and went down to their last meeting to talk about our efforts here in Goffstown and what we've been doing. And we started utilizing the truck scale that we have at the transfer station. We're fortunate to have that scale there. We've set it up so that the drivers can weigh themselves out and back in, so we have a very good accounting, truck by truck by truck, what went out and where it went, which really helps us with our NPDES reporting. But it's also helped us significantly reduce our salt consumption. Now, the reason I say pensively I tell you this is you also remember last winter was a pretty mild winter. So I'm very hopeful that it will carry when we have a normal winter, that the same success we had, or at least what we deem as success last winter, will carry into next winter and we'll realize these savings. So that's the reason that's kind of shown on here. The drainage repairs, and I'll jump down to the bottom to sidewalk repairs. Both of these I mentioned to you before. These are lines that were in CIP. The CIP committee said, you know what, these quack more like a maintenance item than they do a new construction item, so we think these should be pushed up into the operating budget. So they're new to the operating budget, but they were in CIP and had been for years, so they just kind of shifted up. The sign budget, I once again am asking to bump that line up. You're all aware that we have a deadline looming a few years out to replace all of our signs to meet the new federal retroreflectivity requirements. And Selectman Pierce at our highway safety meeting kind of asked how we were doing with that, and I told him that we hadn't even started it because I can barely keep up with the new signs that we keep approving and putting up with that budget. So I haven't even had time to go take down existing signs.
I did
and
my
replace
best to increase that workload.
them. And then the last line that has an increase here to deal with is our bridge repairs. The Henry Bridge, the big one, the metal truss, when they came and did the inspection this year, they found some damage. There's a gusset plate that has a tear in it, and there's some damage underneath that needs to be repaired. It's not like the bridge is going to fall down tomorrow, so don't be afraid to drive over it, but it's more than a $2,000 fix.
Any idea what caused it?
No. One of them looks like maybe it's plow damage, and one of the dings that's in it looks like it could have been a plow. One of the wings clipping it coming across the bridge. The damage underneath. That bridge is very flexible, so we quite often have to go out there. You probably remember a few years ago we had to just totally redo the deck and bring a welder in to re-weld, and there's some damage underneath that is probably related to the flexibleness of the structure. But all total, it's things that we need to take care of.
Do we have, if you don't mind, on that bridge, there's a special galvanized paint. How often do we have to do something with that?
I'm not aware that we have to do anything with it. It's never been pointed out. I'm not sure. It's the first I've ever heard of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Because when that bridge was put up, there was special galvanized paint that was applied to it. My understanding was that it was a life to it.
I'll look into that.
Okay.
The guys over here then might know something about it. Surprised that never shows up in the DOT report.
Nick?
Carl, is there state reimbursement, DOT bridge?
Not for maintenance. They reimburse construction, but not for routine maintenance.
For the repair of that would be considered maintenance, the repair of the damage?
Yep. So, as far as operating budget, there are other lines that went up. The whole solid waste budget, you'll see I didn't mention it. Solid waste is one of those, I wish all budgets were this way. It's all consumable. I mean, almost every line in there is, we put this many tons out, and this is how much it's going to cost, so every one of them is a formula. So you'll see them kind of went up and down, but the bottom line of solid waste is there's no change. The most significant change in that budget is you probably recall last year we were afraid we were going to be paying about $40 a ton for recycling, and obviously we're not. So I think this year I planned on like $10 a ton or $5 a ton, and we're currently we're getting about $5 in revenue. So right now it's revenue positive. The co-op, I did get an update from them that probably better than half of those communities, they have signed contracts in hand, and they're anticipating getting the rest of them over the next few weeks. So as soon as they have all those contracts.
You weren't here, but Sue may have had a conversation with Attorney Drescher, or you may have had a conversation, but the email itself, unfortunately she's not here, but the email itself didn't really reflect the issue that was presented 2 weeks ago, and that was the co-op itself is a nonprofit, and did our warrant, the language that we had with intermunicipal agreement, does it cover that? And although Drescher stated in his 2-sentence reply that he felt that the board was covered, it did not address that particular issue, and that was,
I don't have a document to back it up, but I passed, the folks from the co-op called me and said, what's going on? So I did my best to explain it to them. And when I parlayed that issue to them, they said that when the co-op was formed, the legislature passed something that basically established them as a municipal entity. So
Kind of what I was talking about.
yeah, they are considered an intermunicipal agreement as an entity. So so anyway, I don't, like I said, I don't have a piece of paper that shows that, but I'm sure we could find it.
It's probably one of the few government entities that is a nonprofit.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm hopeful that by next week we'll have this whole thing, wrapped up. But that was the issue
You
there.
know, and just on that, I mean, as far as like the IRS, you're either a nonprofit or you're a municipality. When you go to the post office to try to get, the postage rate, a municipality can't use a nonprofit because they're not a nonprofit. So which entity does a co-op come when it goes to do?
Yeah, depends whichever one gets in the best rate, probably.
So I guess in order to chase down the answer here, I mean, somebody needs to try to get that.
I'd be happy to do
yeah,
that.
That would make, I mean, if that's the case, Carl, and it was created, by the legislature as a intermunicipal entity, then we're done. I mean, you have the support of the board. That was the only stumbling block.
Okay. All right, I ought to be able to hunt that down. I'm sure they have a copy.
Right.
The next page of this is, in the directive that you gave the department heads, you kind of told us to think about revenues and to think outside the box. So we did our best to look at any potential revenue streams. Now, some of these, I will warn you, are way outside the box. I'm sure some of them won't even survive this discussion, and you won't want us to look any further. But nonetheless, we wanted to put a complete list down for you to consider. The first one is vehicle reclamation fee. We've talked about this, I think, in the past. This is a $3 fee that would go on vehicle registrations. I know last year I mentioned it, but of course last year Governor Lynch the state had just jacked up their revenue fees, or their registration fee, so nobody wanted to even talk about those. However, this fee is enabled, and what it's designed to cover is to cover any automotive waste generated within a community. We currently charge people if they bring us tires, but we take waste oil, we take car batteries, we take any other waste, antifreeze. There are all kinds of things from automotive waste that we take. If you implement this fee, which is $3 for vehicles, the projections that I got from Kathy Ball are, and this is a combined, by the way, revenue, because some of it is administrative, so I don't remember the breakdown, but some of it would be revenue to her, because there's an administrative fee for handling the money, and then the rest of it would go into a fund for DPW. And the way the legislation is written, once you've covered your costs for things like tires and batteries and those sorts of things, any money left over can be used to pay for offsetting revenue for any other recycling costs that the community may have. So for us, obviously, we recycle a lot. We have a lot of recycling costs. So that entire thing could be used annually as a recycling revenue. The next one I think you've already heard about, that's the municipal and transportation improvement fee. That's a $5 fee on the vehicle registration. And that would create a fund which could be used for transportation improvements around town. And I think you might have heard about it from something to do with the rail trail. The third one on the list here is one that has been implemented. The only communities I know of that have implemented it are the city of Concord and the city of Manchester implemented it last year. Their two models look similar but different. The intent of it, if you come into Goffstown right now with the intent of digging a trench in the right-of-way, you go to DPW, you pay a permit fee. I think it's like $135, I'm not 100% sure. But the idea of that fee is it covers us spending our time looking at the trench to come up with any conditions. We have to calculate a bond amount, and then we have to inspect the work when the work is complete. And then you also have to put up a bond to ensure that you restore the trench to our satisfaction. However, what it doesn't really take into account is if, just the fact that you've cut through pavement, you have shortened the life of that pavement. Utility cuts just shorten the life of pavement. The intent of this fee is it takes that into account. So the older or the newer the pavement, there's be an additional fee paid to the community that would feed into the road, the road plan money to go towards helping us restore these pavements over time. So again, what I would tell you is I think the city of Concord was taken to court by the gas company in Concord, and I believe that the court upheld Concord's program, so it's been tested in court. Obviously, there'd be a process to implement it, but it is a fee that I think is worth looking at because, right now people cut in. We have a road moratorium, but people still manage to find emergency reasons to cut into our new roads.
Do you have a question, Steve?
And just quickly, you have a potential annual revenue. You must have it based upon what that average fee would be.
Yeah,
I realize it's based on the year of the road, but
what I did, just to give an idea of that, is I took Concord's permit and their fee structure, and I gave it to Kathy Wilmot, and I said, go back through the last 2 years' worth of street opening permits that we've issued, and try to figure out what we would have charged for that fee, based on the last 2 years' worth of permits. So that's the average kind of annual. 1 year is about 20,000, the other year is about 40-something thousand. That's based on permits we've issued on Concord's fee.
so average, I guess what I'm saying is I don't know how many permits we issue on average per permit is what I was looking for.
Oh,
Sorry, just,
yeah. I don't think I brought
just
that.
roughly, I mean, I'm not gonna hold you
Well, probably like 20 or 30.
dollars,
No, numbers.
20, 30.
Permits a year. What do you mean by dollars?
No, okay, so
The cost of them varies by the size of the
I
trench.
understand it, so, but you had to come up, if we're doing 30 and you're anticipating anywhere from, around $20,000 or $40,000, then
Oh, no, that's total. The 20 to 40 is total for the year. That's not per permit.
I understand that. What was your average permit fee roughly then?
Okay, 20 to 40 divided by 20 or 30 permits. So maybe,
But I mean, someone must have had
Take
to come up with
30
a number.
divided by 30.
yeah.
That's all.
I mean, they all vary by size. I mean, this is very dependent on.
Thank you. Had a question?
Yeah, just quickly. Currently, it says this will replace our policy of making someone who cuts a road, so I'm assuming it's a new road under the moratorium.
Yep.
Someone puts in a trench. Currently, what they have to do is go 100 feet in one direction, 100 feet in the other direction, and full width.
Yep.
Repave it.
Yep.
With this new fee, who does that?
Well, we wouldn't just overlay 100 feet either side. The town would take care of the road eventually. The pavement's not gonna last as long. So this fund would be created, and hopefully when the road fails prematurely, we've got more money built up to just deal with it.
So if someone cuts into the road, it's roughly $1,000 that we're saying, that's give or take a little.
Concord's fee is anywhere from $2 a square foot to $7 a square foot, depending on the age of the pavement and the size of the trench.
Yes, Phil.
Carl, you mentioned this going into a fund.